What's going on, guys? Briar Rabbit here. I have been using the older 8BitDo Switch and Bluetooth compatible arcade stick for several years now. I did a review, I want to say it was in 2019 or 2020. I really like this thing. I've got some small problems with it, but overall I think it's a wonderful stick. It's compatible with the Switch. It also has a little dongle so you can plug it into a PC or anything with a USB port, basically. I've used it with the Steam Deck, I've used it with the Mister, I've used it with PC, I've used it with Switch. I've used it with so many different things. It's also very customizable. I've gone through several looks in my house. It's just been a wonderful stick. I really like this thing quite a bit. It's not perfect, but I've really enjoyed it. So when 8BitDo and Microsoft teamed up to make an Xbox compatible version of the stick, I was really intrigued. I wanted to see if this would hold up to my expectations that I had from my much beloved Switch compatible version. This stick is interesting for a number of different reasons. First of all, it is, I think, as far as I know, the cheapest Xbox Series X and S compatible stick available right now. The next lowest one, I believe, would be the Hori Fighting Stick Alpha for the Xbox, which I think is $200. And the next one from that would be the Nikon Daiju, which is $250, I believe. So this one is cheaper by a pretty large margin. And beyond that, it also offers some features that those don't. It's wireless. You just plug this little USB dongle into either your Xbox or a PC, and it just works. You know, it's very simple to do. It's got a battery that lasts quite a long time. It's also pretty customizable. It's not as customizable as probably the previous Switch version. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It's compact. It's easy to throw in a backpack and bring with you. So it's got a lot of nice features. So if you're looking for an Xbox stick, I could see this being a pretty attractive one. So we're going to put it down on the table. We're going to open it up. We're going to go over all of its features, take a deeper look at it. And I'm going to tell you whether I like this thing or not. All right, now that we have the stick on the table, let's take a quick look around and see what this thing has to offer. So first of all, the lever itself and the buttons. The buttons and lever are kind of, I would describe as a high-quality Sanwa knockoff. They feel a lot like a Sanwa OBSF button and JLF lever, but they're not quite right. But I wouldn't be in a hurry to replace them anytime soon. They operated fine, and I didn't feel like they were degrading performance in any way. I have switched in a couple of Sanwa buttons. You can hear some difference, and you can feel some difference, but honestly, at the price point this thing is at, I'm pretty satisfied with the buttons and the lever. If I was going to replace either first, it'd probably be the lever and then the buttons later on, but again, not in any hurry to do so. Looking at the top left of the joystick here, we have a selector switch. This actually controls your headset, which plugs into this jack at the bottom of the joystick, and it's actually kind of neat. Is you can just have it up here for normal mode. You can move it to the middle position to mute just the microphone, or you can mute the entire headset so you can't hear or be heard by anybody, which is a pretty nice feature. Here we have another selector switch. This changes whether the lever itself controls either the left stick, the right stick, or the D-pad. Very nice to use. We have a star button here that allows you to reprogram the buttons. Basically, you can switch which button does what, or basically reprogram, like you could switch the X and the A button or the X and the LB button or whatever you want to do. Then we have the Xbox button. This also functions to turn the controller on. This button is the profile switch. And the profile switch allows you to set up your buttons for like a specific game, or whether you're switching between PC or Xbox, and then switch between your different profiles, which is pretty convenient. Over here we have a switch that switches the controller from controller mode to joystick mode. For the most part, it seems that you want to keep it in joystick mode when it's connected to an Xbox, and controller mode when it's connected to Windows. Next we have, I believe this is the media button, the share button, and the menu button. I always forget what these buttons are called on the newer Xbox controllers. On the right hand side we have the left stick button. So this would be like clicking in your left stick and the right stick button, clicking in the right stick, which is actually, frankly, very nice to see and very convenient to have in such an easy location. It's like in training mode or something, like you might actually end up using those a lot, but you can see they're a bit recessed, so you're probably not going to have any problems hitting those accidentally. While we're looking at the top of the controller, you can see the USB port here. On older controllers, this used to be actually inside this hatch here, where you store the USB dongle. They moved it, and at first I was like, why would they move that? It seemed pretty good because this hatch also acted as kind of like a strain relief for the cable. But once I opened it up, I realized that on the older arcade sticks, there used to have to be a ribbon cable that went to the bottom of the controller for that USB port. And now since they relocated it, there doesn't have to be that. So when you open this up, it just pops off. There's no ribbon cable going to here. So I think that's a better design, and I'm pretty happy with it. If we go to look at the bottom of the controller here, you see 4 rubber pads, which do a reasonably good job of keeping this thing pretty stable on a table. And the controller is also pretty comfortable on your lap as well. One thing I noticed right away, actually, is they added these little bars here on both sides, very kind of close to the bottom edge of the controller. And I think what that is the previous controller had a problem when, specifically if you were like pulling down on the joystick, and your hands were resting on the bottom of the joystick might tip up a little bit, and that could cause it to move around a little bit while you're using it. This doesn't quite fix that. Like it's an admirable try at it, but it doesn't quite fix it. These little legs here would have to be just a little taller to fix it. And that brings me to the actual old arcade stick. So I've been using their older version arcade stick for actually quite some time, and I really like it. And I just wanted to kind of compare some of the differences they've made in the new Xbox One compared to the older. This is more like Bluetooth and Switch, and this works on a lot of different stuff, but not the Xbox. This works on the Xbox, but not the Switch, and not some other devices. So depending on what you want to do, there's kind of a 8BitDo arcade stick for you. But since this one is so old, you can kind of see some of the upgrades they've made. And, you can see on mine is, yes, it has the same pads, but I went and put new pads on just because of that problem where, when I pull on this stick now, it doesn't tend to tip up as much as it did before, because I really tried to put those little feet as close as I could to the edge. It still does it a little bit. It's just the shape of the stick where, the weight of your hands is going to be kind of here, and it's just going to kind of way out here. So in the future, this is a cool looking stick, but I might just, instead of having this kind of edge be diagonal here, I'd probably just have it go straight down so that you could get your feet a little further this way and prevent that issue from happening. Here you can see that the old style of door had the access for the cable inside of here. It's a little hard to see. And then there was a strain relief on the door. It is really convenient being able to just store your dongle right there. If you're like me, you're losing that dongle all over the place. You never know where that thing's going to be. This one's obviously been upgraded quite a bit, but I've used this a lot over time, and I've come to really enjoy it. It's quite high quality. Another thing I'd love to see them do in a future revision is, while I really like the compact size of the 8BitDo style arcade stick, I wouldn't mind if it just had an inch more room on the side where your hand rests, because my hand always is going to be a little bit half on, half off of this edge. And kind of the same, I'd love another inch or so along the bottom edge here, so that when my palm is resting on the arcade stick, there was just a hair more room for my palm to rest instead of just being on the edge here. That being said, the portability of this unit is a huge plus. It is a heavy unit. You can see inside there's this big metal plate here, that helps keep it put while you're playing. But because you just plug in this USB dongle into either a Windows PC or, you know, any modern Xbox, either an Xbox One or an Xbox Series, it will not work on Xbox 360s or older. But you can play a lot of Xbox 360 games on a modern Xbox, which is, you know, really nice. So you can bring this around to your friend's house or to just about anywhere that's using Windows or an Xbox to play games on. It's portable, it's small. You know, you can add something like a link where you can even make this smaller. You can see with the link, you can just pull the joystick right off, throw this thing in a backpack, and you're off to the races, right? I find that to be very convenient and very nice. So yeah, I'd like an extra inch here and an extra inch down at the bottom. But, you know, again, these are kind of nitpicky things that I do really like this joystick. So let's open this thing up. I'll just leave this out for now. And I just wanted to show you a little bit about the inside. This is a pretty easy stick to customize. It's not as easy as the older arcade stick, though. The buttons are, you know, snap in, snap out. If you do want just snap in buttons, it's very simple. I really like that you can just, you know, you just pull these things off, you push them out. There is, you know, there's no plexi or metal here, but it is pretty solid. I was initially concerned that kind of these plastic ridges between the buttons would get in the way of kind of screw-in buttons, but I tried, this is a Crown 202 button here, which is screw-in. I also tried a gamer finger button here. That's a screw-in. I took that out because the gamer finger button was broke. But yeah, no problems replacing buttons. The joystick is compatible with like standard joysticks. You just unscrew them here. The only problem with that is that this is some kind of weird connector that I've never seen before. So you are going to have to solder new connections on here. This is as simple as a soldering job you can get. You know, there's just 5 soldering points that come pre-tinned, ready to go. Like, so that should be like my first soldering job, no problem. But, you know, just be aware, you'd have to solder this to put a different stick on because, unfortunately, this is some kind of weird connector here, and these wires are soldered to the existing joystick. Not a big deal, but on the older 8BitDo arcade stick, the older Switch-compatible one, there was actually a connector on the board that you could just plug in a cable to, which made it a little easier to upgrade the lever itself. Inside, though, you know, it's fairly well laid out. It's easy to figure out. You know, in the pictures of the online, in the pictures of the inside of the stick, they have like a sticker here that shows which color wire goes to which buttons. But as you can see, that's not here. So I would just snap a picture on your phone if you want to replace the buttons, just in case you can't remember which wires go to which button. But really no problem. I'd be a little careful if I was going to get screw-in buttons just to make sure they were going to fit. Just these kind of smaller areas here. But for the most part, I don't have any buttons that didn't fit there. So I think it should be pretty much okay. You might have more of a problem with these up here because this screw is very close to this button. So I'd stick with snap-in buttons if you're going to replace the 24 millimeters that are the left stick and right stick up here. I really like this stick, just like I really like the older 8BitDo arcade stick. My only buying advice is this is a lot more expensive than the older one. This older one is obviously still available. This is kind of a little bit different because it can work with either a dongle or just straight Bluetooth, which really allows it to be used with a ton of different devices. I've used this with my Mister, with my Steam Deck, with my Switch, with my PC. Man, just so many devices, and it just always seems to sync up. This was much more fussy. I couldn't use it with my Steam Deck at all. I could only use it with an Xbox or with a PC. So if you need a Xbox arcade stick, definitely get this one. But if you're just going to get this to use on PC, well, I'd probably stick with this one because you're just so much more flexible here. If you decide to, you know, buy a Switch down the road, or anything else, like if you want to get a Steam Deck, this one just works. Whereas this one had more problems connecting to unadvertised devices. This works on PC. It works on Xbox. This one worked on just so many different devices. So if you want an Xbox controller, this is definitely your guy, and it's great, and it works on PC. If you want to connect to just about anything else besides a PlayStation or an Xbox, this is your guy. I like both of these controllers an awful lot. I'd highly recommend either one of them, depending on your use case. It's nice to have an Xbox controller for the Xbox Series X right now, because in testing this controller, I've been playing a lot of games, because one of the cool things about the series is that it plays older games, and even in an upgraded fashion. So, a lot of people are excited for the new Mortal Kombat 1 that's coming out. So maybe you want to start playing that trilogy with Mortal Kombat 9, but you don't want to hook up an Xbox 360. You just throw this disc into an Xbox Series X. You have a controller to do it. Same with, Street Fighter 4. Same with, let's say, Mortal Kombat vs. DC, Tekken 6, Mortal Kombat 10, and then, of course, there's games compatible with the Xbox One or Series X. Really, your options are wide open, but do be careful to check the Xbox compatibility list, because there are some games that were not compatible, like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which was a little bit disappointing. But really, having an arcade stick on the Xbox, it's really enjoyable, because it just opens up your game library to all these older titles, and they look a lot better than they used to, because the Xbox Series X is outputting them at 4K. It's not increasing the resolution of the graphics, but it is a sharper image than what you'd get out of an Xbox 360, which is a nice benefit. So I'd highly recommend the 8BitDo arcade stick for the Xbox. Make sure that you're buying it for the correct reason. If you are buying it just to use on PC, I'd probably steer you toward the Bluetooth version, which is, I think it's around $40 cheaper, and connects to a whole lot of different devices. But if you want an Xbox controller, this is a very reasonably priced offering. I think it's one of the cheaper ones out there. The next one I know of is the Fighting Stick Alpha Xbox version, which I think is $200. I think Nikon makes the Daiju, which is $250, and has limited availability. I think it's available on Amazon sometimes. But yeah, I would highly recommend this thing. I think it's priced right. It's it's $40 more expensive than the Bluetooth version, but it is it's got the Xbox branding. I'm sure they had to pay a license fee to have it be Xbox compatible. I think it's a very nice controller. Oh, one more thing that it is missing is that on the older version, this might not show up in lighting because it's kind of dim. When you turn this on into Switch mode, yeah, it's not going to show up. There are lit up buttons down here, or they're lit up letters that kind of tell you what your buttons are, which is really nice. On this one, they're just printed here. Obviously, they're not going to change like they would when you're plugging this into a Switch or plugging it into a PC. But I don't know. I just like the lit up buttons. I like blinky lights. What can I say? That's cool. I don't know. This thing's pretty easy to customize. You do have to do a little bit of soldering for the joystick, but really super easy. Buttons are no problem. I think it looks great. I like the white. I like the black. You could, because they are kind of neutral colors, you can go crazy with the buttons in the stick to kind of customize your coloring and to do whatever you want with that. Great stick. A few little nitpicks. I don't like how it kind of leans forward here, but again, pretty simple fix. I fixed it on my old one by just adding little rubber feet to it, and that completely fixed the issue for me. That's gonna do it, I think, for this video. Thank you all for watching. If you'd like to see more stick reviews, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.